The Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 4, Vedanta in its application to Indian life. There is a word which has become very common as an appellation of our race and our religion. The word Hindu requires a little explanation in connection with what I mean by Vedantism. This word Hindu was the name that the ancient Persians used to apply to the river Sindhu. Whenever in Sanskrit there is an S, in the ancient Persian it changes into H, so that Sindhu became Hindu. And you are all aware how the Greeks found it hard to pronounce H and dropped it altogether, so that we became known as Indians. Now, this word Hindu has applied to the inhabitant of the other side of the Indus. Whatever might have been its meaning in the ancient times has lost all its force in the modern times. For all the people that live on this side of the Indus no longer belong to one religion. There are Hindus proper, the Mohammedans, the Parsians, the Christian, the Buddhist, and the Jains. The word Hindu is in its literal sense ought to include all this, but as signifying the religion, it would not be proper to call all these Hindus. It is very hard, therefore, to find any common name for our religion, seeing that this religion is a collection, so to speak, of various religions, of various ideas, of various ceremonials and forms, all gathered together almost without a name and without a church and without an organization. The only point where perhaps all our sect agree is that we all believe in the scriptures of Vedas. This perhaps is certain that no man can have a right to be called a Hindu who does not admit the supreme authority of the Vedas. All these Vedas, as you are aware, are divided into two portions, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Karma Kanda includes various sacrifices and ceremonies, of which the larger part has fallen into disuse in the present age. The Jnana Kanda, as embodying the spiritual teachings of the Vedas known as Upanishad and the Vedanta, has always been seated as the highest authority by all our teachers, philosophers, and writers, whether dualist or qualified monist or monist. Whatever be his philosophy or sect, everyone in India has to find his authority in the Upanishad. If he cannot, his sect would be heterodox. Therefore, perhaps the one name in the modern time which would designate every Hindu throughout the land would be Vedantist or Vedika, as you may put it. And in that sense, I always use the word Vedantism and Vedant. I want to make it a little clearer, for of late it has become the custom of the most people to identify the word Vedant with the Advaitic system of the Vedanta philosophy. We all know that Advaitism is only one branch of the various philosophic system that have been founded in the Upanishad. The followers of the Vishishta Advaitic system, the followers of the Vishishta Advaitic system have as much reverence for the Upanishad as the followers of the Advait, and the Vishishta Advaitist claims as much authority for the Vedanta as the Advaitist. So do the dualist. So do the dualist. So does every other sect in India. But the word Vedantist has become somewhat identified in the popular mind with the word Advaitist, and perhaps with some reason, because although we have the Vedas for our scriptures, we have Smritis and Puranas, subsequent writings, to illustrate the doctrine of the Vedas. This, of course, have not the same weight as the Vedas. And the law is that wherever these Puranas or Smritis differ from any part of the Shrutis must be followed and the Smritis rejected. Now, in the exposition of the great Advaitic philosopher Shankara and the school foundation by him, we find most of the authorities Seated, we find most of the authorities seated are from the Upanishads. Very rare in an authority seated from the Smritis, except perhaps to elucidate a point which could hardly be found in the Shrutis. On the other hand, other schools take refuge more and more in the Smritis and less in the Shrutis. As as we go to the more and more deluistic sect, dualistic sect, we find a proportionate qualities of Smritis quoted, which is out of all proportion to what we should expect from the Vedantist. It is perhaps because they gave such predominance to the Puranic authorities that the Advaitis came to be considered as the Vedantist per excellence, if I may say so. However, it might have been the word Vedant must cover the whole ground of the Indian religion life and being part of Vedas by all exception or acceptance. It is the most ancient literature that we have. For whatever might be the idea of modern scholars, the Hindus are not ready to admit that part of the Vedas were written at one time and a part were written at another time. They, of course, still hold on to their belief that Vedas as a whole were produced at the same time. Rather, if I may say so, that they were never produced, but that they have always excited in the mind of the Lord. This is what I mean by the word Vedant, that it covers the ground of delusium or dualism, of qualified monism and Advaitis in India. Perhaps we may even take in parts of Buddhism and Jainism too, if they would come in, for our hearts are sufficiently large. But it is they that will not come in. We are ready, for upon several analyses, you will always find that the essence of Buddhism was all borrowed from the same Upanishad. Even the ethics, the so called great and wonderful ethics of Buddhism, were there words for word in some one or other of the Upanishads. And so all the good doctrine on the Jains were there, minus their vagaries. In the Upanishad, also, we find the gem of all the subsequent development of Indian religious thoughts. Sometimes it has been urged without any ground whatsoever that there is in no ideal of bhakti in the Upanishads. Those that have been students of the Upanishad know that that is not true at all. There is enough of bhakti in every Upanishad if you will only seek for it. But many of these ideas, which are found so fully developed in later times in the Puranas and the other Smritis, are only in the gem in the Upanishad. The skeleton was there as it were. It was filled in some of the Puranas, but there is not one full grown Indian ideal that cannot be tracked back to the same source, the Upanishads. Certain ludicrous attempts have been made by persons without much Upanishadic scholarship to trace bhakti to some foreign sources. But as you know, these have all been proved to be a failure, and all that you want of bhakti is there even in the Samhitas, not to speak of Upanishad. It is there, worship and love and all the rest of it. Only the ideals of the bhakti are becoming higher and higher. In the Samhita portion, now and then you find traces of religion, of fear and tribulations. In the Samhitas, now and then you will find the worship quaking before the Varuna or some other god. Now and then you will find they are very much tortured by idea of sin, but the Upanishad have no place for the delineation of these things. There is no religion of fear in the Upanishad. It is one of love and one of knowledge. These Upanishads are our scriptures. They have been differently explained, and as I have told you already, whenever there is a difference between subsequent Puranic literature and the Vedas, the Puranas must give way. But it is at the same time true that as a practical result, we find ourselves 90% Puranic and 10% Vedika, even if so much has that. And we all find the most contradictory usage prevailing in our midst and midst, and also religious opinions prevailing in our society which scarcely have any authority in the scriptures of the Hindus. And in many cases, we read in books and see with astonishment customs of the country that neither have their authority in the Vedas nor in the Smritis or Puranas, but are simply local. And yet, each ignorant villager thinks that if that little local custom dies out, he will no more remain a Hindu. In his mind, Vedantism and this little local custom have been indissoluble identified. In reading the scriptures, it is hard for him to understand that what he is doing has not the section of the scriptures, and that the giving up of them will not hurt him at all, but on the other hand will make him better man. Secondly, there is other difficulty. These scriptures of ours have been very vast. We read in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, that great philosophical work, that the Samaveda, had 1000 branches. Where are they all? Nobody knows. So, with each of the Vedas, the major portion of these books have disappeared, and it is only the minor portion that remains to us. They were all taken charge of by particular families, and either these families died out and were killed under foreign persecution, or somehow became extinct, and with them that branch of learning of the Vedas they took charge of became extinct also. This fact we ought to remember, as it always forms a shit anchor in the hands of those who want to preach anything new or to defend anything even exist or against the Vedas. Wherever in India there is discussion between local custom and the Shrutis, and whenever it is pointed out that the local custom is against the scriptures, the argument that is forwarded is that it is not, that the custom existed in the branches of Shrutis, which has become extinct and so has been a recognized one. In the midst of all these varying methods of reading and commenting on our scriptures, it is very difficult indeed to find the thread that runs through all of them. For we become convinced at once that there must be some common ground underlying all these varying divisions and subdivisions. There must be harmony, a common plan upon which all these little bits of buildings have been constructed, and some basic common basis common to this apparently hopeless mass of confusion which we call all religion. Otherwise it would not, or it could not have stood so long, it could not have endured so long. Coming to our commentators again, we find another difficulty. The Advaitic commentators, whenever an Advaitic text comes, preserves it just as it is. But the same commentator, as soon as a dualistic text presents itself, torture it if he can, and brings the most queer meaning out of it. Sometimes the unborn becomes a goat. Such are the wonderful changes effected to suit the commentator. Aja, the unborn, is explained as Aja, a she goat. In the same way, if not in a still worse fashion, the texts are handed by the dualistic commentator. Every dualistic text is preserved, and every text that speaks of non-dualistic philosophy is tortured in any fashion he likes. This Sanskrit language is so intricate, the Sanskrit of the Vedas is so ancient, and the Sanskrit philosophy is so perfect that any amount of discussion can be carried on for ages in regard to the meaning of one word. If Pandit takes it into his head, he can render anybody's prattle into correct Sanskrit by posing of argument and quoting the of text and rules. These are the difficulties in our ways of understanding the Upanishad. It was given to me to live with a man who was as ardent a dualist, as ardent and Advaitist, and as ardent a bhakta as a jnani. And Living with the man first put it into my head to understand the Upanishad and the text of the scriptures from an independent and a better basis than by blindly following the commentator. And in my opinion and in my research, I came to conclusion that these texts are not at all contradictory. So we need have no fear to text torturing at all. The texts are beautiful. They are the most wonderful and they are not contradictory but wonderfully harmonious. One idea leading up to the other. But the one fact I found is that in all the Upanishad they begin with dualistic ideas with worship and all that ends with grand flourishing of Advaitic ideas. Therefore, I now find in the light of this man's life that the dualist and the Advaitis need not fight each other. Each has a place and a great place in the national life. The dualistic must remain, for he is as much part and parcel of the national religion's life as the Advaitist. One cannot exist without the another. One is the fulfillment of the other. One is the building and the other is the top. The one is the root and other is the fruit, and so on. Therefore, any attempt to torture the text of Upanishad appears to me very ridiculous. I begin to find out that the language is wonderful. Apart from all its merits, has the greatest philosophy. Apart from its wonderful merit, has theology, has showing the part of the salvation to mankind. The Upanishadic literature is the most wonderful painting of sublimity for that the world has. Here comes out in full force that individuality of a human mind, that intuitive Hindu mind. We have painting of sublimity elsewhere in all nations, but almost without exception, you will find that their ideal is to grasp the sublime in the muscles. Take, for instance, Milton, Dante, Homer, or any of the Western poet. There are wonderful sublime passages in them, but there it is always a grasping at infinity through the senses. The muscles getting the ideal of the infinite expansion, the infinite of the space. We find the same attempt made in the Samhita portion. You know some of those wonderful rishis where creation is described. The very heights of the expression of the sublime in expansion and in infinite in space and attained. But they found out very soon that the infinite cannot be reached in that way, that even the infinite space and expansion and infinite external nature could not express the ideas that were struggling to find expressions in their minds, and so they fell back upon other explanations. The language became new in the Upanishad. It is also almost negative. It is sometimes chaos, sometimes taking out you beyond the senses, pointing out to you something which you cannot grasp, which you cannot sense, and at the same time you feel certain that it is there. What passage in the world can compare with this? न तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चंद्रातारकम् नेमा विद्युतो भान्ति कुन्तो अयम अग्निः. There, the sun cannot illumine, nor the moon, nor the star. The flash of light cannot illumine the place. What to speak of this moral fire? Again, where can you find a more perfect expression of the whole philosophy of the world? The gist of what the Hindus ever thought, the whole dream, the human salvation, painting in language more wonderful, in figure more marvelous than this. Upon the same tree there are two birds of beautiful plumage, most friendly to each other. One eat the fruits and the other sitting there calm and silent without eating. The one on the lower branch eating sweet and bitter fruits, in turn and becoming happy and unhappy, but the other on the top, calm and majestic. He eats neither sweet nor bitter fruits, cares neither for happiness nor misery, immersed in his own glory. This is a picture of the human soul. Man is eating the sweet and bitter fruit of this life, pursuing gold, pursuing his senses, pursuing vanity of life, hopelessness, madly carrying he goes. In other places, the Upanishad have compared the human soul to the cariotor, and the senses of the mad horse, and senses to the mad horses, unrestrained. Such is the career of men pursuing the vanity of life. Children dreaming golden dreams, only to find that they are but vain, and one old chewing, one old man chewing the cud of their past deeds, and at not knowing how to get out of this network. This is the world. At in the life of everyone there come golden moments in the midst of the deepest sorrow. Nay, of the deepest sorrow, there come moment when a part of a cloud that hides the sunlight moves away as it were, and we catch a glimpse, in spite of ourselves, of something beyond, always, always beyond the life of the senses, away, away beyond its vanity, its joy, and its sorrow, away, away beyond nature or our imagination of happiness here or hereafter, away beyond all thirst for gold or for fame or for name or for posterity. Man stops for a moment at this glimpse and sees the old bird, calm and majestic, eating neither sweet nor bitter fruits, but immersed in her own glory, self-content, self-satisfied, as the Gita says. He who devotes his is he whose devotion is to the Atman, he who does not want anything beyond Atman, he who has become satisfied in the Atman. What work is there for him to do? Why should he drudge? Man catches a glimpse, then again he forgets and gets and goes to on eating the sweet and bitter fruits of life. Perhaps after a time he catches another glimpse, and the lower bird goes nearer and nearer to the higher bird as blows after blows are received. If he be fortunate to receive hard knocks, then he comes nearer and nearer to his companion, the other bird, his life, his friend, and as he approaches him, he finds that the light from the higher bird is playing round his own plumage, and as he comes nearer and nearer, the transformation is going on. The nearer and nearer he comes, he finds himself melting away, as it were, until he has entirely disappeared, and he did not really exist. It was but the reflection of the other bird, who was there, calm and majestic amid the moving leaves. It was all his glory, and that upper boards he then became fearless, perfectly satisfied, calm, serene. In this figure, the Upanishad takes you from the dualistic to the almost Advaitic conception. Endless example can be cited, but we have no time in this lecture to do that, or to show the marvelous poetry of the Upanishad, the painting of the sublime, the grand conception. But other idea I must note, that the language and the thought and everything come direct. They fall upon you like a sword blade. Long as the blow of the hammer they come. There is no mistaking their meaning. Every tone of that music is confirmed and produced. It's a full effect, no ga- guarantion, no mad words, no intricacies in which the brain is lost, no signs of degradation are there, no attempts at too much allegorizing, too much peeling of adjectives after adjectives, making it more and more intricate till the whole of the sense is lost and the brain becomes giddy, and man does not know his way out from the maze of the literature. There was none of that yet. If it be human literature, it must be the production of the race which had not yet lost any of its national vigor. Strength, strength is what the Upanishad speaks to me. From every page, there is the one great thing to remember. It has been the one great lesson I have been taught in my life. Strength, it says, strength. O man, be not weak. Are there no human weakness? Says man. There are, says the Upanishad, but will more weakness heal them? Would you try to wash dirt with dirt? Will sin cure sin? Weakness cure weakness? Strength. O men, strength, say the Upanishads. Stand up and be strong. It is the only literature in the world where you find the word abhi, fearless. Abhi, fearless. Use again and again. In no other scriptures in the world is this adjective applied either to God or to man. Abhi, fearless. And in my mind arises from the past of the vision of the great emperor of the West, Alexander the Great. And I see, as it were in a picture, a great monarch standing on the bank of the Indus, taking to one of our sannyasin in the forest. The old man he was talking to, perhaps naked, starred naked, sitting upon the block of stone, and the emperor, astonished at his vision, tempting him with gold and honor to come over to Greece. And this man smiled at his gold and smiled at his temptation and refused. And then the emperor, standing on his authority as an emperor, says, I will kill you if you do not come. And the man burst into laugh and say, you never told such a falsehood in your life as you tell just now. You can kill me. Kill me, you kill. Me you kill, emperor of the material world. Never, for I am a spirit unborn and undecaying. Never was I born, never I do die. I am infinite, I am omnipresent, I am omniscient, and you kill me, child that you are. That is the strength, that is a strength. And the more I read the Upanishad, my friend, my countrymen, the more I weep for you, for therein is the great practical application. Strength for us. What we need is strength, but who will give us strength? There are thousands to weaken us, and of the stories we have had enough. Every one of our Puranas, if you press it, gives out story enough to fill three-fourths of the libraries of the world. Everything that can weaken us has a race we have had for the last 1,000 years. It seems as if during that period the national life had this one end in view: how to make us weaker and weaker till we have become real earthworms and quarreling at the feet of everyone who dare to put his foot on us. Therefore, my friends, as one of your blood, as one that lives and dies with you, let me tell you that we want strength, strength, and every time strength. And the Upanishads are the great minds of strength. Therein lies strength enough to invigorate the whole world. The whole world can be vivified, made strong, energized through them. They will call with tempest voice upon the weak, the miserable, and the downtrodden of all races, all creeds, and all sects, to stand on their feet and be free. Freedom, physical freedom, mental freedom, and spiritual freedom are the watchwords of the Upanishads. This is the one scripture in the world of all others that does not talk of salvation, but for freedom, but of freedom. Be free, be free from the bonds of nature, be free from weakness, and it shows to you that you have this freedom already in you. That is another peculiarity of this teaching. You are Dvaitist. Never mind. You have got to admit that by its very nature, the soul is perfect. Only by certain actions of the soul has it becomes contract, contracted. Indeed, Ramanuja's theory of contraction and expansion is exactly what the modern evolutionists call evolution and atavism. The soul goes back, becomes contracted, as it were, its power become potential, and by good deeds and good thoughts, it expands again and reveals its nature perfection. With the Advaitis, the one difference is that he admits evolution in nature and not in the soul. Suppose there is screening and there is small hole in the screen. I am a man standing behind the screen and looking at this grand assembly. I can see only very few faces here. Suppose the hole increases as it increases. More and more of this assemblies is revealed to me. And if and in full, when the whole has become identified with the screen, there is nothing between you and me. In this case, neither you changed nor I changed. All the change was in the screen. You were the same from the first to the last. Only the screen changed. This is the Advaiti's position with regard to evolution. Evolution of nature and manifestation of self within. Not that the self can by any means be made to contract. It is unchangeable, the infinite one. It was covered as it were with a veil of Maya. And as this Maya while becomes thinner and thinner and inborn, natural glory of the soul comes out and becomes more manifested. This is the one great doctrine which the world is waiting to learn from India. Whatever they may talk, however they may try to boost, they will find out day after day that no society can stand without admitting this. Do you not find how everything is being revolutionized? Do you not see how it was the custom to take for granted that everything was wicked until it proved itself good? In education, in punishing diseases, even in education, in punishing criminals, in treating lunatic, in treatment of common diseases, even that was the old law. What is the modern law? The modern law says the body itself is healing. It cures diseases of its own nature. Medicine can at the best but help the storing up of the best in the body. What says it of criminal? It takes for granted that however low the criminal may be, there is still the divinity within which does not change, and we must treat the criminal accordingly. All these things are now changing, and reformatories and penitentiary penitentiaries are established. So, with everything, consciously or subconsciously, that Indian idea of divinity within everyone is expressing itself even in other countries. And in your books, in explanation, which other nations have to accept the treatment of one man to another will be entirely revolutionized. And these old ideas of pointing to the weakness of mankind will have to go. They will have received their death blow within these centuries. Now people may stand up and criticize us. I have been criticized from one end of the world to the other as one who preaches the diabolic idea that there is no sin, very good. The distinct descendant of this very man will bless me as the preacher of virtues and not as sin. I am the teacher of virtues, not the sin. I glory in being the preacher of light and not the darkness.